as I was saying, travel is going to be a thing of the past. I was just in London and Scotland 2 weeks ago, I don't even know when. Time is just going by. But I was there a couple of weeks ago, and my travel guy, my travel companion and travel agent, he was giving us tours. His name is Michael O'Fallon. He's amazing. And he does tours all around the world, usually for very large groups. And we were talking while we were going through, and he said, the United Nations Sustainable Goals are to make sure that we're not traveling anymore. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, you should see Europe now while you can. Again, what do you mean? He said, well, the carbon rules, and we're going to go to carbon zero. And we started talking about the sustainable goals that are in Europe, where cars, there will be no combustion engines, definitely for sale by 2035, no combustion engines on the road, period, by 2050. That's their goal, and we are locking ourselves into it. And what they're doing is they are actually getting rid of any way to go back on this. For instance, everybody, you just use common sense. We don't make enough electricity to be able to have everybody to have an electric car. There's just the power grid alone cannot handle it. We would have to redo the entire power grid for that kind of load. Good news, we're also getting rid of air conditioning, so maybe that will balance things out. Of course, then you'll get rid of the gas stoves and any gas-powered anything, natural gas, gas heating. This week in New York, they're now banning wood fire ovens. So if you wanted a wood-fired pizza, sorry, not going to get it anymore. Bad for the environment. So we were talking about the air travel, and the air travel on the documents, and I tweeted it out last week. Maybe we can do it again. The Sustainable Development Goals show that air travel. It's an interesting chart, and it shows things being diminished until they get to zero on some categories. Travel is one of them. There will be no travel unless it is mass travel on trains. Easier for Europe, impossible for the United States. But they are now closing or preparing to close all airports except for Heathrow and Glasgow. So Gatwick's going to be closed. All of the other public airports, I am sure the private airports will be open for the personal jets for the elite. So we're talking about this, and I said, what is that going to do to your industry? And he said, we're already being affected because you have to play along or you aren't going to survive. And one of the things he's telling me that they're doing in these big conventions for travel agents and travel services is they are talking now about you got to get into the virtual reality space. You got to start doing that. Now listen to this article. It just came out from the New Yorker. What is the most uninformative statement that people are inclined to make? My nominee would be, I love to travel. That's uninformed? I love to travel. This tells you very little about a person because nearly everyone likes to travel. And yet people say it because for some reason they pride themselves both on having traveled and on the fact that they look forward to doing so. Now this is the New Yorker, the magazine with the cartoons. Even the people who made the cartoons don't understand. So she's talking to the elite group, and she is setting the table now as a snob to say, you think you're a snob because you like to travel. Oh, I was just over in Paris the other day. She's saying that shows that you're ignorant. You're kind of out of the cool kids club. The opposition team is small but articulate. And she goes through some, G.K. Chesterton and Emerson, et cetera, et cetera. She said, but there's a wonderful, wonderful hater of travel, the Portuguese writer Fernando Pessoa, whose wonderful book, The Book of Disquiet, cackles with outrage. I abhor new ways of life in unfamiliar places. The idea of traveling nauseates me. Oh, let those who don't exist travel. Travel is for those who cannot feel. Only extreme poverty of the imagination justifies having to move around to feel. Are you kidding me? This is putting the entire idea. What have they always said to us? Americans don't understand because they don't travel, because they're on the other side of the earth from the continent where real culture is. Now they're starting to lay the seeds that you're ignorant if you want to travel. My friend wrote to me as I was noticing this article in the New Yorker, and he said, "Told ya." And I'm like, yeah, I know. I hate it when somebody is right on something so dark. He said, I read the article. She writes a poetic postmodern piece to provide some romantic notion that you shouldn't travel. He said, but Glenn, believe me, this will catch on, and the area of sustainable travel and hyper-real thing travel experiences will begin. If you choose to visit London as opposed to saving the earth, you will have a destructive boomer mentality. Soon, with ESG metrics in place, traveling will be considered harmful and sinful, and in the age of CBDC, central bank digital currency, penalized in many cases if the algorithm believes that you have traveled too much. Local airports are going to begin to shut down. Regional airports with far less capacity will become the norm. Train travel will be permitted as long as the trains are operating with net zero efficiency. Of course, none of this has to do with preserving the environment. It has everything to do with keeping you in your 15-minute city and in your fractured affinity-based autonomous zones. Remember those, Chaz from Seattle? This will eventually change as pressure from globalized interconnected states and regions put the squeeze on the utopian feudal communities. So many seem to want to rush into it nowadays. This doesn't end well as we break the spell and explain that nearly every travel-oriented airline, hotel, cruise line, rental car, train corporation is now controlled by BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. And they are all in this, and all of the companies they own are in it due to coercion. Millions of jobs will be lost in travel, and those who have travel-related industries, if you're in the travel community, you better speak up and better speak boldly. If you're somebody who has benefited from travel, you need to speak up and speak boldly. Most people think that this is crazy, and I am the first to tell you, it is. It is crazy. The people that are behind all of this are the global elites, and they are very out in the open. I'll tweet the documents out to you to show you this is a well-thought-out plan at governments of many levels and on many continents. We are one of them. And their intent is to create a feudal system. We're going back to the road. We're on the road to serfdom, and we will be serfs. That's why you will own nothing. It's really important to understand, why did America become the place everyone wanted to go? It's because people, I think we've overused the words liberty and freedom. They came here for opportunity, the opportunity that freedom and liberty provide. Liberty and freedom, you say those words and people are like, yeah, I know, freedom, but we should shut those people up over there. No, we can't do that. because that limits the opportunity for growth. You can't grow. If you're surrounded by like-minded people, you're going to keep coming up with the same crap. And if you are part of a problem, you've created the problem, and all the people around you are saying the same thing and like-minded, you're never going to be able to solve the problem. That's why opportunity exists for two reasons. One, people felt free to argue back and forth and say, no, I don't think that's the right road. You know what? I'm going on my own and I'm going to build something better. That propelled us forward. The other thing is, for the first time in America, you could go someplace and you didn't need to be a member of a guild. You didn't need to be a Freemason because you were a stonemason. You didn't need to have degrees. You didn't need to pass through someone else's portal who was filtering people. If you wanted to do it, you could do it, no matter who calls you crazy. Now, you might lose. You might end up losing everything, but you were willing to take that chance back in the day because it was the only place you could take a chance. And if you won, you got to keep the ideas and you got to keep the spoils. You had to hold the risk and you had to pay for it if you lost. But if you won, it was yours. That's why we had fire in caveman days and we were still cooking over fire when the founders showed up. And then what happened? We went from fire to moon travel in 150 years. Why? Because people were incentivized. They were incentivized, wait a minute, I have an idea. And they knew they could change their station, their life, and their family's life forever if they had a great idea and it worked. That's opportunity. That's what people want. We're going back to serfdom, where our overlords will keep us on land and in buildings and in homes that we don't own.